Okay, so I'm going to show you how to set up a file in Illustrator. Um, Same thing works in Photoshop, the same layers, changing the sizes, etc. But we're using Illustrator because we can resize vectors and nothing happens to them. They don't get all pixely or look terrible. So let's go to Illustrator. So hopefully you have Illustrator open. This is the file we used in class, this fish file. And the first thing we want to do is change the size. So to do that, you want to hit the artboard tool, and it's Shift O on your keyboard, Shift Octopus, not zero, Shift Octopus. And that'll highlight the tool. And then you're going to want to double click the tool, and you're going to get this window up, and under presets are a whole bunch. And if you go down, we're going to use NTSC DV, but you can see that there's all sorts of print standards, phone standards, old school video standards, modern video standards. We're just going to go with NTSC DV for now. So you're going to choose NTSC DV, National TV Standards Committee. It's the American formatting. PAL is European. All right, so NTSC DV, hit OK, and I can see on my artboard what size everything is. So I have my layers showing. If they're not showing, window layers. I'm going to select everything and just hold that shift down as I resize it. Remember to always let go of the mouse before the shift tool. Doesn't fit perfectly. If you want to keep this little border, you can. I'm going to just pull it out a little. There we go. And I want to separate this little texture from the blue and have it on its own layer so I can animate it. So if I go over here, I can see I really haven't done a very good job of separating things. There's just kind of things on layers, not very well organized. So you really want to keep things organized. So I'm going to go down to my little page here where it says create new layer. There we go. Now I can't pick the texture, and that's because this object is grouped. So I am going to say ungroup. Depending on what you download to make an animation out of, you might have to release a clipping mask, which this one doesn't have anything, so we can't release it, or undo a compound path, but lots of times you just have to ungroup. So I'm going to ungroup it. There we go. Now all the little texture points are on their own layer, and don't go too far, you know, like I could still ungroup this more and then group each of those little points. That wouldn't be very useful. So I'm going to click off real quick and then click right on one of these little points, and you can see it says anchor when I put my cursor over it. And over here in my layers, you can see there's a little dot right here. This says blue background and this little dot, and all you have to do is click on that little dot and drag it up to this layer that was blank, and we can tell that I dragged it up because it turned purple. That's the indicator color for this layer in Illustrator, and it turned purple over here. And by the way, if you click the layer, you could change that color if you didn't like it. I don't have any issues with it. I do want to change the name of my layer, and I'm going to call it texture, so I know what it is when I bring it into After Effects and it's in layers. I know exactly what I'm animating. I don't have to click on and off. It's named properly. All right, so let's see. I am just going to delete the original blue layer and put a nice neat one that fits perfectly in here. There we go. Okay, so that's just my blue. And by the way, you can change the color. You don't have to keep it blue. Here's my textures. And then I have some, let's see here. Oh, I've got, okay. On this layer, I have circles, but there's one not on this layer, and I think it should be there. And it is on the layer above, lonely circle for some reason. So if I click that, then I get a little dot here beside the layer. This is a lonely circle. And I'll pull that down to the circles layer. You'll see it turns red because that's the indicator color for this layer. So now I've got all my circles on one layer. I have my blue background, my texture, my circles, and by the way, that borders with the circles. Now this lonely circle layer is empty, and the small fish layer is everything, including, I see a little extra circle right here on the screen, so I'm going to click that guy, bring him down to the circles layer so he's where he belongs. And I'm also going to take these water splashes and put them on their own layer. So I will make, I think I actually want that layer to be behind the circles layer, because as you make layers, the things that go on top of each thing are covering. So this bottom thing, everything is covering it. This is above it. All right. So I'm going to make a new layer, call it splash. It is above the texture layer and below the circle layer. Hold my shift down, grab this splash, pull it down to the splash layer, grab this one, pull it down to the splash layer. I think I'm going to move it in and maybe, there we go, like it's coming out more. Same thing with this one. I'm going to move it more towards the middle. Rotate it a little more. This little circle can be down with his buddies. Maybe even down there. All right, so background is the blue. Texture is the texture I'm going to animate. Splash is those two little splashes, and then turn the little eyeball on and off so you can see them. Circles should be all the circles. Yep. Nothing is on the lonely circle layer, and all the fish are on their own layer. So you want to make sure if you want to animate it, it's on its own layer. All right, so I'm going to go to this small fish. I'm going to grab the littlest fish here. I selected him, and again, I just click this little square and drag it down to the lonely circle layer, and I'll rename this one smallest fish because he is the smallest fish. Now I'll make a layer above the small fish layer, and let me click the medium fish, and I will move him up and call him that layer medium fish. And then one more layer with large fish. And let's put this big guy on there. So here we go. Looks like all the fish are on their own layers. Those circles are on their own layers with the border. The splashes are on their own layers. The texture is, and the blue color background is on its own layer. So we have it set up the right size we want. And in layers, all the layers are named. So we're going to save it. So I'm going to say File, Save As. I'm just going to call it Fishy and save it as Adobe Illustrator. I'm saving mine to the desktop, but if you're doing a big animation, you want to make a folder and have all your stuff. Actually, I'll do that right now. I'll say New Folder, Create New Folder, Animated Fish. And I'll create that new folder, and I'll save Fishy AI in my Animated Fish folder. Okay. So all the layers are in order. It's made the right size. And now we're going to go bring it into Adobe After Effects. So Go ahead and launch After Effects if you haven't yet. Or pause this video to do so. I'm going to hit New Project. And I'm going to double click in this little square here to import, or you could say File, Import File, or if you look, Command I. So I'm going to go to the desktop and I want to go to my animated fish folder, grab fishy, make sure it's composition. Right down here, make sure this Illustrator PDF EPS sequence is not checked. Somehow that got turned on and it caused chaos, I tell you. So we've selected it. It's on composition, and create composition is great. This is not checked though, or it's going to be really not fun. So I'm going to hit open. And if you look, you can see in your project window right here, the fishy and fishy with layers. If you double click your composition, it'll go down here in order, or if you click this little arrow, you can see all the different layers of separate files, which is pretty cool. So if I'm just going to double click the composition, it's that thing that has the red, blue, and green, the green triangle, and everything is on my screen. Let me shrink it down. Just to be safe, I'm going to check my parameters under composition, composition settings. It's defaulted to custom. I'm going to put it back to NTSC-DV. I'm going to make sure down here that, so preset NTSC-DV, and down here for the duration, from left to right, it goes hours, minutes, seconds, frames. So we just want 30 seconds of NTSC-DV. I'm going to hit OK. So we have all the layers in order. And let's go ahead and do that texture layer. So I'm going to click the little arrow beside the word texture. It's layer number 7. I'm clicking the down arrow, then it says transform, and I'll click that. And before I do anything, I think I'll just go to scale and make that texture a little bigger so that, there we go. So you can see as I scrub it, it's making it a little bigger, and it's a vector, so it won't turn into a pixely mess. So that's okay. It won't be animated because I did not click the stopwatch. But now I am going to go down here and click the stopwatch on rotation. Now I'm going to go to the end. If you have a regular keyboard, you can hit end for the end and home to go back to the beginning. I have a laptop right now, so that won't work. And I'm going to go here to my values. There's 2 values. How many rotations? Degree of rotation is the second one. And I'm just going to scrub it so it goes halfway around to 180. And now let me zoom in a little bit on this window up here so y'all can see. We'll just scrub my playback head. You can see that background, those little bubbles are kind of moving around. Let me play it. It doesn't go quite as fast as when I was just scrubbing it. Kind of subtle, but it's a nice effect. Easy animation to do. All right, next we're going to go to the splash layer, layer number 6, and you're going to click that little arrow, boom, to open up and get to the transform. Now, I wanted to do scale on this, but it kind of scales out. I don't like where it's scaling from, so I'm just going to hit Command Z to undo that. I'm going to change its anchor point. So just to change the anchor point, you want the thing called pan behind, which is the anchor point tool. Not really easy to remember. It's like Y for Yowza or U or something to that effect. I'm going to pull this anchor point down from the bottom from up here to down to the bottom. So that's where it's scaling from. And I didn't animate the anchor point, although you can, but I didn't want to animate that. I just wanted to move it. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to turn on scale, and I'm going to make those guys go down behind all the circles. So I shrunk them down, and then I'm going to move to the end, and now I'm going to make the scale bigger. Go. And you can see it makes these little diamonds. And by the way, let me play this and see what we have. So there's a diamond here and a diamond here, and I'll hit the play. Those are some pretty slow splashes. So I'm going to click my beginning diamond and just pull it to maybe 10 seconds, and now I'll play it. Still pretty slow, so maybe I want to even move it farther down to 20. So this is still the same start point as I move it, and this is still the same end point for the last diamond. Well, we'll just say that these guys have some kind of slow splashes. It's okay for now. I would also like them to fade out. So I am going to go to the end here. I'm going to click opacity and put it to 0 because I want to animate their end point first. And then I'm going to move it ahead a little and put it to 100. So between 28 and 30 seconds, they'll fade out. So let's see what I got now. And obviously this is just, very basic, but that's okay. We're learning the basics. I think I'm still going to move in the scale this over even more. So all this happens quicker. Let's see. And then boom, fades. Okay, so next we're going to move some of the fishes. And let's go with our large fish first. So first we're just going to have him swim across. He's just going to swim across, okay? So let's go to the large fish, click the down arrow, click the transform open, and I'm not going to animate anything at this moment. I just want to change his location. So, make sure I was on the anchor point tool, selection tool. I was like, what is happening? Is V on the keyboard. So I'll just move him off. And then I'll hit position, the little stopwatch for position. And I'll go to the end. And he's gonna swim. He'll just swim straight, even though I'm not quite moving him straight. Maybe I'll just stop him there because it's easier. And I'd like to do the puppet tool now. So I'm going to move them in the middle, and I'm going to show you maybe some better solutions in a second. So you want to hit Command P, and the puppet tool is at the top up here. And I know that Zoom is not supporting my zooming in on my Mac, so that kind of stinks. But the puppet tool is Command P. It's up here. So I'm going to put one on his little snout and on his back and here and at the end of his tail. And you can see it makes all these different things. That's all advanced stuff. We don't really have to worry about that yet. So I'm just going to move his little nose up. Move ahead in time. And you can see it made in the puppet mesh a point. Move it down. Move it up. Move it down, so this is pretty tedious, right? So a couple things. I can go down here and select these points if it'll let me. Oh, I did a bad thing. Ignore that. There we go. So that's very tedious. Another thing you can do is if you hold down the command key, you can get a little stopwatch that you can see as I'm over this point, and you can move it in time and it'll record your movements. It's really hard to do. I'm sure I'm going to mess it up, but I'm going to show you better solutions. So there we go. We got him going a little, so he got ahead of his tail. He's going to have some issues. That's okay, because he's a good little fish. So, okay, good. So you can see it made a whole bunch of points, a crazy amount. So let me rewind it and play it. So he's not going to do anything because I didn't start animating him until he got kind of on the screen. So there we go. He's hitting, now his little nose is going. He smells something in the water. It must be that stuff in the background. Oh no, his tail wants him out of here. Get out of here, it's polluted. So there he goes. Oh, what a mess. So there's the easier solution. Let's go to our medium fish next. So even with computers, animation is still tricky business. So let's go to medium fish, and I'm going to zoom in on them, Command plus. Oops, there we go. And grab my puppet tool, which is Command P. So Command plus over this window blows it up. Command P gives me my puppet tool. And I'm going to make sure I have medium fish selected. Click, and I'm going to give them the same points as before. All right, little fishy, come on. So I'm back. I figured out the issue, and I will tell you what it was. So let me go to share. Okay. And the issue was that what I thought was the medium fish was not. My actual medium fish is, if I turn the little eyeball on and off over in the corner here, it's this one up here. It's so very important to label things in After Effects and know where stuff is. So I'll turn that on and off. Now let's use the pin tool on him. 1, 2, 3, and on this. Okay, so before what I had done is I had animated him swimming across and then use the puppet tool. But I'm going to move my playback head to the beginning, and this time I have a puppet on him. I'm just going to put the puppet mesh animation on him, then him swimming across, because then I have to chase him like I was before. So I'm going to put my cursor over his tail and hold the command key down. I'm sorry I don't know all the Windows hotkeys. Might be control. I'll try and find a doc that gives you all of them. All right, so I'm holding the command key down on the Mac, and I'm just going to move his little tail around. There he is. Boom, he's having a great time. You can see the playback head recording it. So he won't be all crazy and stretched and maniacal looking like previously my fish was. So I'm just moving his little tail as it records my actions. There you go, little fella. There you go. Still not done. Almost done. Come on. Hey, there we go. And my playback head comes back to the beginning. So I did his tail. Let's do his little nose, because you can do every point and record it. So I'm going to hold the command key down and, oh, there we go. That looks a lot better, right? Like his motion looks a lot more realistic than my motion of my previous fish. All right, so now if I play it, you'll see him just kind of, there he is, just kind of swimming there in place. But that's okay, because now we can use the position rotation and have him swim across. There's my other fish, he's having some issues. Poor guy. Yeah, this is a slightly different version just than the previous one I was using, but that's okay. Yeah, the other guy's having some issues. So let's add the position um, animation to the other fish. Okay, so move my playback head, and we've got to go below all these effects that are underneath the puppet. We'll go to transform, position. I'll move him to where I want him. Hit V on your keyboard or go to the black arrow. I also caught an error in my other one. The anchor point tool is, oh no, it is Y. I thought it was Command Y. It's just Y. All right, shouldn't have doubted myself. I'm going to turn position on, go to the end, and move him. He's going to go a little faster. He's going to dive down too. There we go. Oh, they're kind of too close to each other. I'm going to have to start him a little lower or higher. The other fish is, let's fix that right away. I'm going to highlight that beginning point. I highlighted the little blue diamond. And I'll just move them down, and this will be better. Okay. Yay, we can see them both swimming. So the next thing we're going to do is add some music. I hope I can find some fast, but I should be able to. So there we go. So to import music, same thing, file import, Command I, double click in the project window, whichever one of those you want to use. I think I have a folder called music, so that should be easy. Yes, I do. Awesome. Let's see, what should he? I'm going to open up this old song. We actually don't need a composition, so I'm going to uncheck that. I'm just going to hit open, and I got my nice little MP3. Close everything. I'm going to just drag it down to the bottom. There it goes. Now it's too long, but that's okay because our composition is only 30, so it will still be cut off. And I'm going to turn this little arrow beside it down and down again, and you're going to see audio levels. So first see audio levels, waveform. Then I'm going to turn the waveform and turn that down. I think it's helpful to be able to actually see the music waveform. So I'm going to animate a fade out at 28 seconds. I'm going to click the audio levels where they're at a normal. 0 is just what you brought it in as. And then I am going to pull the audio levels down. There's something loud going by. Hopefully it's not interfering. And you'll see the waveform going down. Let's see if that was too much of a quick fade. My little fishes. They're super spooky fish. Okay. There we go. Now it's gonna fade out. It's just much nicer than a jarring, bam, it stops. All right, now we've got to render this. So, file, composition, add to render queue. Composition, add to render queue, or on the Mac, Command Control M. Composition, add to render queue, or Command Control M. Record render settings, output modules. If you double click on these, for now you can just leave them at their defaults. But you know, depending on what you're doing, you might want to pull the resolution down to half size or something like that. Oh, under here, and here's different compressions. We don't need to worry. We don't have a giant file, so it should be okay. And then output, I'm going to click on Fishy Movie. On the word Fishy Movie, it looks like maybe you should, from the way it's set up, like click the down arrow, but that's not true. You click the title that's on there right now. So mine is Fishy Movie. And I'll go to Animated Fish folder, QuickTime's fine. I'll hit save, and then over here on your, I'm not good with left and right, on your right, in that window, in the render window, you hit render, and you'll see this blue line going across. You can see it's rendering really quickly. And then it should be a file you can now upload to your YouTube. Okay. Oh, gotta stop recording.